And speaking of today's show, we have one of our friends back on this morning.
We do.
U.S. loan auditors. They are back on our show. They were here last week to talk about loan modifications.
That's right. And today, Jim Sanderson is with us to explain the pros and cons of loan modifications. Welcome back.
Hi, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show. First off, for people out there who might not know what a loan modification is, please explain.
The loan modification is just basically changing the terms of the original loan, modifying what you originally agreed to.
Okay.
And Jim, we're hearing a lot about loan modifications on the news, and also hearing there are some loan modification companies that are being shut down. What's going on with that?
The problem with loan modifications is that they truly, for the majority of the time, don't work. And many of these loan modification companies that have come up are simply frauds. They're just stealing people's money, and they should be shut down. And it's difficult to tell, which is which out there. And so that the DA's office, the Attorney General's office, the Department of Real Estate, a lot of these are going after these companies and working hard to protect the consumers out there.
So why would you want to get a loan modification, first off, and then why are some of the reasons why a loan modification might not work for you?
Well, clearly a lot of people are in a lot of trouble on their loans. They've gotten some very bad loans. They're way upside down on their properties. The loans are just a mess, and so they want help. They want to fix this stuff. But the loan modifications don't work because most of these loans, as we kind of explained last time, have been pooled into these big trusts and then sold out on Wall Street as mortgage-backed securities. Well, in that pooling, there's a contract that is made up with the trustee. It's called a pooling and servicing agreement, and that document says how these things can be modified. Period. You can't go around that. And we had Countrywide was sued by 20 the attorney generals throughout the United States. They agreed to go back and modify terms of the loans, try to fix a lot of these things. And a federal judge in New York instantly stepped in and said, wait a minute, you can't do it. It violates the terms of these pooling and servicing agreements. And so the loan modifications are very difficult or impossible because in order for any of them to work, they have to be pulled out of that pooling and servicing agreement in order for some modification to occur, and it almost never happens. So that the term, whatever the modifications are, what's built in when the loan was made, and they're very limited. They don't create a net loss for the investor anywhere, so it doesn't help the homeowner. They just get run over.
So how do you know? I mean, before getting roped into something like this, I mean, because for somebody like me, and I'm sure a lot of people out there, you don't know the right questions to ask.
Well, and there truly aren't. I mean, it's virtually impossible, and that's why we don't even try to do the loan modifications. We go right into federal court. We file lawsuits. Showing fraud and violations of truth in lending, violations of the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. There's a whole litany of causes of action that we do, and put the whole thing under the auspices of a federal judge. Mm-hmm. Then they're able to pull that loan out of that trust, and the judge takes ownership of it, and then we can try to work through to figure out what occurred and how we're going to fix it.
So, Jimmy, you touched a little bit how U.S. loan auditors is different than a loan modification company.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't do the loan modifications. The first thing that is done is a complete audit of the loan and the circumstances surrounding the creation of this loan, and figuring out what violations have occurred. And there are some loans that are fine, that were done correctly, okay, and everything's good, but there are a considerable amount, the vast majority in recent years are just a mess.
And then you file in federal court.
Correct. The federal system, a case is owned by that judge from cradle to grave, and so that you have one judge that affects everything in the case. It's much easier to deal with than the multiple state jurisdictions, which, first of all, we've got, a whole bunch of different counties. Every county's got differing rules, okay, and then in each of the counties, they bounce them from judge to judge until you get to a trial. And so it's difficult, much more difficult to deal with in state court.
So, how do you know if you have a case, though, before you go to federal court?
Call us.
Okay.
We do free consultation, free free look at the documents. If we think that there's a problem, then we do a complete audit of the documents, the case, everything involved here. Turn our findings over to an attorney who reviews it and makes a final call as to whether this is an actionable case,
Okay.
whether we can file it.
And Jim, we have the information up on the screen on how
Yep.
people out there can give you a
888-55-AUDIT. Call us.
And I imagine you're very busy these days.
We
Jim.
are extremely busy. I mean, the amount of fraud that occurred over the last several years is just appalling.
Wow.
People ought to be in jail, and they're not going to jail fast enough, in our minds.
Wow.
All right.
Okay. So starts with that call to you, Jim. Thank you very much.
Thank you.